fantastic. Um, what we decided to talk about this week, just in some of mine and Austin's chats that we chat with every week anyway, is we just decided, we were talking a lot about talent management, and we were like, let's bookmark some of our ideas and we'll bring it to the chat. And I decided let's use chat GBT and see if there was some interesting things it could tell me about what Air Force talent management thinks. So we wrote some stuff up, and some of the things that we're going to cover today is just an overview of what talent management is, some of the challenges, opportunities, and innovation ideas, and where we're at as an Air Force. And I think, Austin, we had talked about more talent management too, of course, what can we leverage and influence in our scope and our realm and our area, our sphere, basically.
That's right. Yeah. That's a big part of it for me, is that we, understandingly that we don't inherently have the ability to just go top down and make these massive groundbreaking changes. But we do have, at pretty much any level, we have the ability to kind of structure and mold that talent management and those systems the way that we want within our unit. So I'd like to talk about some of the options that are available, maybe some new ideas, and maybe just get the creative juices flowing. And I see that Chad Hardesty from over at Morpheus joined us too. So I know talent management is a big thing for him, and he's super passionate about the Air Force and where things are heading. So when we get to Q&A, we'll hopefully be able to unpack some more stuff. But again, like this is just like Nate and Austin's perspective on the things that we've seen in the Air Force as far as like talent management, the opportunities that are available, the challenges to going out and capturing and sustaining those changes, and then where we see talent management kind of in the future, 2030. So do you want to kick it off, Nate, on the kind of like the role of talent management? And we'll just do like a rough overview first, and then we can start to get real weird with it.
Yeah, absolutely. From my perspective, at least on a talent management side, I really didn't think a whole lot about it until I, became a master select, and then you are sent a vectoring sheet in whatever system we're doing it now. I can't remember what it was called, or where it's at the moment. It's a little early over here, but at least from a junior NCO perspective, you just kind of leverage which different types of sections you want to work, if you can, or different job opportunities, and you kind of navigate on your own. And then with the my vectoring platform, or at least idea, I mean, I don't know how much we're utilizing it on the large scale, hopefully more and more, because I think it's a great opportunity to at least give your own input of where you would like to go and type of the scope that you would like to see. I know that fortunately for me here now at PACAF, at the level that I'm at, my chief, who sits on those boards, is sits directly next to me in the cubicle. So able to get a lot of feedback of what they're looking at, what they're thinking, what the different scope of how they're looking at a projected individual's career as they move into those different positions, and then how you should apply or think about where to move in the future as well. And then of course a lot of it really is timing and then needs of the Air Force. But I think by having these communication tools and an intention tool, really you're getting at least a voice to the Air Force of, here's some things that I would like to do if this also fits the Air Force needs.
So to that, I don't want to bring it up just yet. We'll kind of go over more of that, more of the general kind of high level view of Air Force talent management. But there is a program that the Reserve and the Guard are using, Air Force Guard and Reserve, as well as the Space Force, called Gig Eagle, Gig Eagle. It's definitely Googleable. There's a short 2 to 3 minute video about what it is, but basically it's an AI algorithm based talent management software. And we can talk about it in a little bit. But I mean, what is Air Force's talent management objectives, right? I mean, like in the overview that you gave, Nate, the Chat GPT kind of spat out, the role is, in the Air Force is developing and retaining skilled and motivated personnel, ensuring the right people are in the right roles for mission success, right? Like, but what has changed to me, like when I look at the way that generally the Air Force, manages human capital and talent management and making moves, still leaves a lot kind of be desired, because I still see it, and I could be wrong, and please, we can unpack this, but like when I was looking at and researching how talent management systems and policies came to be, a lot of the things in the conscription era of the Air Force are still applicable today, as far as how moves are made, how manning is created and sustained at locations, skill levels and competency within those skill levels. There's so much of the 70s, 80s era that still kind of seems to be around. That to me, at least, when I talk to the younger generation, I mean, I kind of feel like I'm still the younger generation. I don't know. I'm 34.
Yeah.
Um, I'm getting there. You know what I mean? Like, so pretty soon I'll be able to be like, oh yeah, old whippersnapper. But like, there's so many things that leave. There's a lot to be desired still from the younger generation. I think very few, if any, jobs will be available from now, into 2040, 2050, where folks are entering the workforce, civilian or on the DoD side, where they're going to be doing the same job for that entire time. It's next to impossible, right? Technology is going to phase out jobs. Automation is going to create the need for potentially for oversight, like human oversight of those jobs that used to be done manually. It's just it's inevitable that stuff is coming down the pipe, and things are going to continue to change. So I see like the Air Force and the DoD writ large talent management systems just need to get more agile, and the scope needs to get a little bit more nuanced and I think individualized. And then when we talk about Gig Eagle, we can unpack that more. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on kind of current state and what Air Force talent management is. And unless you have something for that, but I wanted to kind of take a second, see if anyone in the group has anything to add to that. Chad, come on, where you at? Come on.
No. So now I appreciate the early intro. I'm actually I actually slid over to A1H talent management. So I'll be working everything talent management over the next couple of years. So I think you hit it spot on. I think talent management is a vast majority of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis from top level down. But I do agree. I think we have to find ways to retain talent, and I think probably cyber is the best example. How can we have individuals in the force, working day-to-day jobs, but also working for like NSA and different things like that, so that way outside programs can pay them the money that they deserve. So human capital is super important, and I think we just got to find ways to kind of manage that.
That's right. Hey, and since you're over there and seeing that side now and getting in your niche of like talent management, you can call me out on all the BS and all the things that I say that are wrong. So yes.
No. I know as much as you do, man. I've been in the seat 1 week, so.
But man, I love Chad's swagger. I love the way that yeah, you got a swagger about you, Chad. But I appreciate you being on here. So thanks a lot.
No, man, absolutely, man. Super excited to learn from you guys.
And same for all of you. This is like, as we're still kind of boosting and growing our Tesseract liaison network, like these conversations are not like, we're not talking at people ever. You know what I mean? Like these are conversations, open two-way street kind of conversations to generate more interest and get more ideas to get that stuff funneled upward. And you know what I mean? Like this is just an opportunity to use this platform to do more of that networking, more of that collaboration and build like lasting relationships that'll hopefully, grow into like positive change for the rest of the Air Force. So yeah, so here we are. So we kind of blew by we blew by our overview. So we'll get into kind of challenges, I guess, and opportunities
Oh, before we do that,
next.
I see someone had hand up.
Actually, I'll wait. I'll wait till you open the floor a little bit later. Okay.
That's okay. No, John, that's fine. You can go ahead.
now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Ask the questions then. Hey, thank you so much for facilitating these guys. We truly appreciate it within the team, and this is truly beneficial for everybody. So Tesseract is trying to build this culture, across the Air Force. We're trying to push it really hard. Obviously, there is a lot of roadblocks along the way, and one of the things that we're pushing for is funding innovation and funding various training for you and for ourselves as well, and certifications. Um, so we would like uh, all the LNOs to be able to engage and develop in the field. And I know some LNOs have received some of these benefits. And do you guys have? And I know some of you guys as well have received some of these benefits. Can you guys talk about that as well? If this is part of the development as well that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. I back in 2022 last year, I was invited to go down to Andrews to participate in a theory of constraints facilitator, like a train the trainer course that was being facilitated by a Gold Rat Consulting member. So learned a week-long course, was fully funded, and I was able to come back and kind of integrate some of those theory of constraints principles into some of like the Six Sigma and the lean practices and events that we had going on around like maintenance and logistics career fields here. So that was excellent. Huge eye-opening thing to be able to learn from some of the best people in that field. And then recently, I got to be able to register for a registered Scrum Master course. Again, fully paid for through Tesseract. And so the goal being that liaisons will be able to use all of this knowledge, that they've, we're developing liaisons kind of across the whole Air Force, that they're going to be able to kind of pay it forward and give back. So I'll lead, Scrum-like events on the base and kind of fill that gap where, at least here locally, we know that we have a lot of great ideas, but those great ideas haven't necessarily translated into sustained programmatic change or policy change or process change or anything like that. So yeah, it's been fantastic. Like the development process that the Tesseract is using is far and away better. I mean, it's still kind of like blows my leadership's mind. They're like, why, like, you're a first sergeant and you're in the communication squadron, and they're like, and we fully support you. And like, we want you to do this stuff because we know it's going to pay off. Right. Because I'm going to come back and I'm going to give it right back to the CGOs and the NCOs and airmen that are here. We have project managers, so it's going to help them. But they're like, well, why are they asking you to do it? They're like, you're not in A4 anymore. You're not a maintainer. You're not in logistics anymore, right? Like, then you take the hat off. But it's like, it's being able to, after I had that conversation with them, I'm like, it's a lot bigger than that, right? Like, it's not just going to be able to help A6. It's not going to be able to just be like A4M and L. It's like, it's a wholesale kind of transformation of the way that we develop people and how we'll be able to develop even more people on the back end of that.
Yeah, and from my
Thank you
own
for that.
experience too, a couple weeks ago, I went to innovation leadership seminar, week-long intensive from a company called Next, and the whole week was learning about how to develop and implement and use innovation systems and how to communicate how that innovation system could work in each environment, and working on how to build that within your team. So I'm excited to, have my chat with the Tesseract people about lessons learned from there, and where we're at in our area, and how we're, creating innovation systems to fit production systems within our communities too, and how to communicate that to leaders, and use that with the teams that we have here. But that was a great opportunity. And one of the things that Austin and I highlighted on our outline here was, leadership development programs. And I think Tesseract's doing that within the talent management space, and someone had mentioned, people and money. Well, this is another avenue to use those and leverage those, and give other people, development opportunities within the innovation space. And then, as Austin was saying, like, if we can highlight people that are generally interested in the space and give them the tools, like, we're just going to continue to make ourselves better. And that's really the goal.
Thank you so much for sharing, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the question. That was a good question.
All right, next step. I just checked in the chat too. I appreciate Chad said we're the real deal. So you know what I mean? And that's not a Chat GPT compliment either. That comes from the heart.
Right.
That's from a real person. And then
All heart,
Cody, Cody said Gig Eagle is a great program. So hopefully, Cody, hope you can stick around, and we can kind of chat more about Gig Eagle in a little bit. But yeah, you want to talk about some of I want to preface this, like, the challenges and opportunities of talent management, right, in the Air Force. As a first sergeant in a communication squadron, one of my main goals when I came in was to kind of prioritize the development. And I did at the time, like when I first started, didn't really necessarily know how to give opportunities to people. But what I ended up seeing as soon as I came in was I was getting a lot more airmen, first-term airmen, 4-6-year enlistees that were going guard or reserve, or separating altogether. And we are losing amazing, highly talented, highly motivated individuals. I mean, and it's not a secret. We're losing them to the civilian sector, who can pay more, who can offer less additional duties. And what I see is that we've been trying to sustain this talent management system that we have in place through the airmen receiving kind of like death by 1,000 cuts throughout the course of their career. And I try not to be jaded or biased, but I mean, I have a maintenance background, and I know that there's a stigma there in the maintenance and security forces career fields, huge career fields. They kind of have that stigma of like, you're going to have less of a quality of life. You're going to be working longer hours. You're going to be working harder in general to generate those sorties, but it's needed. So I think that needs to be addressed. But that's also the tough part about living in a bureaucracy and a system that's as large as this is, that the 1,000 cuts is 1,000 actionable things that we could change or should change, right? So yeah, hopefully we can unpack some of those. But the things that I think of off the bat, how much time it takes for awards, decorations, routing and everything, performance reports, and how much time it's taken to do that, additional duties that don't necessarily, they don't drive excitement to do, but are still required to do. And that's just a few. Nate, I'm sure you've got your own as well.
I do, but I see Chad's got his hand raised, so I'm gonna let him chime in.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak on a couple things, because I think, Austin, you pointed out a couple good points, right? Retaining talent, and I'm only on here. I didn't know you guys were doing something, but I posted something on talent management yesterday. So I think a couple things you guys are gonna start coming to see down, right? Is one is Air Force specialty codes. So I won't get into specifics, but I will tell you that the Air Force is definitely headed in the direction where they're looking at how do we kind of retain talent where we have, let's say, individuals write test rec. You go into test rec, but then let's say I send you back to your FSC. I'm now losing a piece of that talent. And if let's say you're a maintainer and maintainer is not being a maintainer is not your passion, and you're better suited for the Air Force somewhere else, well, there's two options, right? Either you're probably going to get out because, right, you don't want to keep cutting yourself and going down that path. Or as an Air Force entity, right, or enterprise, we're going to put you where we need you and where you're best suited best. And so I think you're going to see some pilots over the next 12 to 24 months that are probably going to start attacking that. And a good example would be, if I'm a security forces member, right, but I was a sheriff or a cop for a couple of years, I was a sergeant, a supervisor, maybe that airman skips a good portion of tech school, comes in, and maybe they're a senior airman or a staff sergeant right off the bat when they come in. That would be an example of retaining top tier talent as well as a compensation model. And so just wanted to kind of speak on that portion because I thought that was a really good point. And to give you guys some insight on where I think the Air Force is going to be headed in conversations that we had. Over.
I'm excited about all of that stuff, and I've heard rumblings about some of it, but it at the end of this, it might sound I don't have a big a filter or anything. I'm very transparent about how I feel about how things are, and but I want to leave the conversation on a note of optimism. So I'm excited to see some of those changes be made in the future, and I think it's going to be great. Well needed. Definitely needed.
Yeah, thanks, Chad, for chiming in on that. And I love the direction we're going. I know that in the chats that just Austin and I have had, the thing that I love about the innovation space is, and that I'm learning anyway, is that not every idea is just going to be this home run, think of a thing, and then it's so good we're going to implement it. But there's so many great ideas that if we just try and learn, fail fast, try and learn, and continue the innovation process, like we're going to get to where we want to go. So I think that's a great first step. And then like that's kind of along the lines of what Austin asked me my thoughts. Like I love the idea of changing everything we've been doing, because as a military and a force, like we've been doing this, the tech school education progression silos, 40 plus years. Like change it all. I think this generation of airmen coming in, we need to just move away from the way that we teach them and educate them. Like the idea that you go sit in a classroom, or you go in a classroom for a couple hours and then go on a simulated area to learn. I think it's so outdated. Like I think we can move them faster. And I honestly think we can get them through basic training, really, really basic Air Force military training, and get them into the operational communities faster, because you can learn what you're doing on the job. And as we go into, a more of an agile force and, capable airmen, and some people don't want to hear that term, but I think we're moving into a direction where AFSCs can and will and should merge even more together. And I just want to see where that goes. And I must have said something that sparked something, because I see all kinds of hands raised. So whoever wants to chime in, please feel free.
I'll go first, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I appreciate it. This definitely touch good point that we were talking about within our team, and it's the fact that there was a memorandum that came down from USAFE command talking about how they can improve the quality of life, and this also comes down to the quality of work, and some of the what they call the bold actions, and I put that in in parentheses, bold actions that they said they were trying to double down occupancy in the dorms. They were trying to build robust programs to graduate, and then mandatory skills classes. While some of these things are really, really good and have worked for many, many years, what we believe truly will help is by giving people more autonomy and giving them ownership of what they have to do. That's maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know, but I believe giving ownership and maybe doing all these trainings in a way that's more up to the 2000s, 2020, like in video games or something like that, like the way that you were talking about then. And is great that you guys are talking about this because we were just talking about it as well. And definitely, if you build autonomy in people and people truly volunteers because they want to volunteer for these things, it makes a huge difference. And just forcing it and people would be just like, oh, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Brandon, I see you got your
Um,
hand. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk about the AFSC component. We talked to Liz up at Morpheus for the past 2 years on how to make that better, things like that. An idea that was floated around for the past year and a half, and we really drove to try and make it happen. And we were running into all sorts of roadblocks, but they were legitimate risk mitigation type roadblocks. Is that things like design thinking, emotional intelligence, all that stuff should start when they get off the bus at basic. And in some components before that, even to maybe being able to task MEPs to start that kind of process of them gaining that skill to build this community and culture environment. So the AFSC is really, really good. The overall picture should be to where the whole environment speaks a similar language and is able to communicate across the board from start to finish. So a brand new airman coming in, let's just say 17, 18 years old, says, hey, I want to be able to do this. And somebody who's been in for 20 plus years should be able to communicate with that person on the same level. Because let's face it, most innovation isn't rank or position related, right? The end users constantly fluctuate within that environment. So we really, really looked at trying to get that ball rolling. And there's pockets of that, especially down there at Randolph, right? There at Lackland, right? They have the Orange Rope program there. And it's to get them more involved in the space at an earlier time period. So that way it becomes a standard. So you're not just saying, hey, here's this additional duty. They're already doing it. It's just part of their daily routine. It's part of their culture, their environment, how they communicate within that. Because currently right now with the 9I type of stuff, the issue that we're running into is like the AFPC component, how they operate, how they see it. PCS is PCA. G got to watch firsthand for the past year, me and Bridges going back and forth with each other, trying to get position made, right? Like it's a nightmare. But it doesn't need to be that way when you're already developing them into your overall culture and environment. And the Marines, ironically enough, are doing it better. And it's because, you know, every Marine has an identity of a rifleman. They're taking that on as every Marine is also an innovator within that environment. So how do we develop the skills and competencies into that originally as soon as they come in, right? So indoctrinate them early within the environment that helps that growth and develop. So the AFSCs help with the structure and the skill path to it. How are we building that culture? Because you're talking about generational change. So you need to start it now at a lower level for that generation then to 10 years from now. Now that's your overall culture. So unfortunately, like me, Austin, most likely we're not going to see that, right? We're not going to see that generational change. But we're prepping that for that future component. So what are some of the things, I guess, you're obviously doing it on a base by base basis, but how are you scaling that into your MAGCOM culture to where it's like, okay, here's all these opportunities that are available out there, but as soon as they get to FTAC, this is what they're given for the innovation space. Now we have 300 design thinkers across this ecosystem, this innovation army that I can tap into. And then you're able to identify individual skills of like coding, you know, design thinking, all these things that the LNOs do, right? So what kind of things are you looking at when it comes to that? And then how are you pressing your MAGCOM to essentially be like, hey, we've done the work for you. So just accept it. Here's your risk mitigation.
Yeah, I like I use that old parable, like Confucius, where, you know, I was telling Nate this morning, like we're basically sowing the seeds and planting the trees for, you know, the shade that we'll never be able to get to enjoy from all of that. So yeah, I wanted to throw that in there because that makes a lot of sense. But you know what I mean? It's a necessity, right? And that's why we're here to do this stuff and kind of spread the gospel and everything. But I think as far as locally, we're looking at boosting our manning to our innovation lab first. There's just been, between the stand up of our lab here at JBMDL between 18 and 19, and then when COVID hit and kind of took everyone out of the innovation lab, there's been a, you know, a continuous, just slight decline in the production and the capability and output of our lab. So we're trying to build that back up. But in addition to that, we are trying to reach out. Like, I've been working with our airman development advisors, what used to be called the career assistance advisors on the base, to have consistent touch points through FTAC and through the NCO PES and through even like at commanders calls, where commanders, you know, at the wing level or the group level will really be trying to inspire airmen. So it's not just a one-time thing. Like, I think it's a great idea to kind of instill and indoctrinate, right? That's probably not the right word, but like at the earliest time that's convenient for the Air Force to be able to put that information out there, and then at least provide a foundation so that when they go to FTAC, these things are not like completely new terms. These are not new words that we're having to teach them to get them to a foundation. They'll already have that. So those are kind of some of the things that we're looking at, just being more visible and really trying to like really inspire people to do it. Now, we understand that not everyone's going to, you know, inherently want to be driven to go innovate things or improve processes or whatever, and that's fine. But we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to them to talk about it more frequently.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in because I thought that was a good point. I'll make it really quick. You know, I know you guys are throwing around the MAGCOM, right? You know, getting the MAGCOM involved. I think that's super important. As a 9-9 myself in my new position, you know, I think that cross-flow communication from MAGCOM is super important, especially when you think about innovation, talking about project sharing, saving time, money, and stuff like that. But I think, so there's a use case, security forces, there probably hasn't been much discussion about it. But basically what we're doing is Security Forces Center, basically they're going to get, their innovation cell is going to get certified as design facilitators. Then what they're going to do is, then they're going to go out to basically all the bases across the Air Force, and they're going to basically at each base, that unit, they're going to basically certify, put a certain amount of individuals to become design certified. And so basically what you end up having is as people PCS and different things like that, you have a flow of people that PCS and PCS out, go to different bases, and you have basically design defenders is kind of what they're going with. So that way they have an understanding of not only design, but innovation, small innovation business research, SCTR, TRAP5, TAP5. So they kind of get the whole realm. I like the MAGCOM, but we've been doing that for the last couple of years and the communication is not really there. So I think if we can get it from a functional community where we kind of get the buy-in there, I feel like as people cross-train and different things like that, I think we'll see more of a culture of innovation and design and the things that we need to kind of accelerate change moving forward. But that's a good use case that's going on right now that not a lot of people know about. So I just wanted to kind of throw it out there. Over.
Yeah, I think another good use case is going to be the Pathfinder initiative, and that's going to, I mean, it's going to take some different iterations, I'm sure, to cross that between other AFSCs. But the way that I've kind of seen like that linear, you know, parallel between what a Pathfinder is and then their traditional career field and how they kind of jump in and out. To me, it doesn't look like there's any spot in there where they're lacking in their core AFSC, but they're also, honestly, I think they're going to be more effective when they go back to their career fields because they've had all of this developmental knowledge and skill. They've been upskilled basically throughout their entire career. So I'm excited to see what comes from that.
Yeah, unfortunately, man, Pathfinder is going to change. Like, if anybody doesn't know what Pathfinder is, it's all about how we look at Air Force specialty codes and kind of put people exactly where they need to be, whether it's job wise, certifications, different things like that. But I think Pathfinder is going to change a bunch over the next 2-3 years. With Pathfinder, what I would love to see is taking that concept or whatever that concept ends up being, and tagging somebody right at a recruiter's office, and then running them through that and see where that goes in the next 12 to 18 months, right? To me, that is the best use case. I think moving forward with whatever iteration that we end up landing on in Pathfinder, that to me, that's really what's going to tell us, can we move past our kind of current systematic changes that we've been kind of going through and trying to change, but we can't break through. Over.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate it. Brandon, did you have a question? Still, your hand. I see your hand.
Yeah, it was more for Chad. So you talk about how you're having a hard time communicating with the match comms. So I know ATC, especially with Dr. Walsh and the Force Development Council, has made a priority to cross communicate this between match comms through CLOs. So I would really get with her, and that'll help you get a better seat at the table to cross communicate this issue for what we see up and down the whole entire chain when it comes to the MAGCOM is that it's not that they don't want this change, it's that they don't trust the change, okay? Within that environment. And that's through all levels. That's squadron, MAGCOM, wing, group, like you can go all over the place. And we see all the pockets with it to where somebody higher up will come down, ask the question, and they're like, oh no, everything's hunky-dory, or no, we don't want to do it. And then they just leave it at that. Because they see it as risk and a task that they feel like they can't take on. So we have to show them empathy within that environment to create that cross communication better, and then utilize the resources that they already have produced and have available to then do that. What you mentioned with the security forces individual, we do that with like design warfare. I'm a facilitator for that. So we already go from base to base, and then we create this, and then we develop an SEI for it to essentially be like, okay, this is a skill or competency that these people have that then we can select from to be able to do that. And Liz was a key contributor within that. What we have to be careful of is the fact that when we designate somebody, say like a DW facilitator, it becomes too specific. So then that person gets looked over because it's like, oh, he's only a DW facilitator. No, that person could facilitate many other things. So finding this balance between a broad stroke and too specific within that environment. Either way, like it's a learning curve. So I hope that you don't feel like I'm trying to beat you up or anything. G's used to this because
no, you're good. You're good. Hey, Brandon. So, well, one thing I don't see any issues at MAGCOM, but the issue is right is those individuals they move on, right? You made a good point. Leadership, right? So a MAGCOM commander or command chief, right? They're gonna get replaced in a certain amount of time. So what if that is not a priority, right? And so then now we lose that seat at a MAGCOM. Now AETC, I don't foresee that ever being an issue. But you may have that at, let's say, at AFMC base where it's civilian centric. Design warfare already tracking. But when you think long term, I can't send every defender that wants to get certified in design warfare for 4 weeks, right? So I got to modify that. And I'm tracking the SCIs, been a part of that for a while. I got a bunch. And I think the SCIs are gonna allow us to push, let's say, digital badging, if that's what SimSAF decides to push forward, or the new SimSAF, as that individual comes into the seat in the next 6 to 8 months. But I say functional community just because MAGCOMs they're gonna be gone every 2 years, right? And those command chiefs are gonna be gone every 3 or 4. And those priorities change. Functional communities won't change unless we go into a completely different Air Force specialty go system where we just get rid of AFSCs, right? Like Austin said, we start merging people together, which none of us are ever going to be around to see that unless somebody's on the call and been in like 3 years, to 5 years, maybe you see it. So no, I think you had all good points, man. And I think the MAGCOMs are awesome. Don't need a seat at the table. I know what they're doing. I pay attention. I'm on those calls all the time. As I need to get kind of essay on stuff. So no, I think you made valid points, man. I think they were awesome. So I don't feel beat up at all. Never. I appreciate it though.
Hey, I see your hand up, George. If you
per-
wanted to jump in.
Perfect opportunity for me to jump in since I am at the MatchCom and this is my bread and butter of what I do.
Hey,
So I'm a 9-9 currently in ATC MatchCom. I work with, thanks to the efforts of Soren Eastman, Dr. Welsh, our leadership here wants to push innovation as best we can. Now, the challenges that we run in our end, like as we all know, each MatchCom does things differently. So this is Gurion speaking. When my perfect pathway when it comes to talent management is embed the innovation culture in the Airmanship 100-200 course. We know as NCOs, when we go to ALS, NCOA, Senior NCO, we do all our 4 lenses and stuff like that. What is the, how do you lead your people? How do you understand your people? The different intrinsic, intrinsic mindsets that are out there. If my perfect view would be to embed that same curricula into the airmanship program, so that way the Air Force is building that culture from the very get-go. We're trying to push, like how Sergeant Ibsen said, the orange rope over here in Fort Sand, the medical squadron training group has a program that the airmen that come out of that are already design thinking or division mindset. So when I go to this FTAG and I talk to the individuals that have gone to the Orange Rope program, these guys have that mindset already of, I want to constantly improve. And these are people that are in medical. So it's refreshing seeing that mindset already ahead of it. So that's what we're trying to do at the MatchCom here in ATC. And one of the biggest problems that I want to tackle is that the Air Force need to put in writing the sustainment portion of this type of, because I understand that the SEI is a great thing, but again, it's only a way for the Air Force to look at what is our current talent and where do we put them. It's not really catching the portion of already, okay, perfect. I have someone in this space for 2 years. How can I keep him in the space for longer portion? In my case, I'm lucky because I've been here in this innovation space since 2021, but they put a control tour here. So I will be in the MatchCom innovation space till 2025. So I will be that 5-year innovation airman.
Hey, Jorge, I
That's awesome.
wanted to jump on something real quick, man. You talked about the Orange Road program. So I actually worked with them when they came through the refinery, the vice chief's refinery program. Awesome program. So here's another example, right, of a great program that went fast, is doing great things, but then failed on change, right? So we got them all set up, they had a meeting with the AD, right? So I guess CAA, ADA, now AD, career assistant advisor, CFM, right? Sat down, had a great meeting. It got through the O chain, and then they all left. And then guess where that program went, right? And so Brandon, this is why I talk about sustainability, right, and change. All these people change out. Where we're lagging, especially on the enlisted side, is the lack of policy. Like, if we have a really great program, how do we get it into policy, right? And how do we kind of work with our really intelligent 3FOs in our community to try to get some of this stuff situated? And so amongst other AFSCs that work policy and stuff. So to me, that I feel like that's where we're at, man. Sustainability and understanding policy and getting something in there. So you made good valid points. And it's super excited to see that you're going to be in the space for a while, because it just tells me that you're going to make a lot of permanent change and not something that's temporary. And when you leave, it falls off. Over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when it
that's
comes to
what
that,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, and when it comes to that mindset, one of the things that I know that a current leadership, that when they leave, their focus is that strategic, holistic view of the field. So when we talk to our airmen, when they're pushing up innovations, they have to ensure that, that's why we talk about the national defense strategy, balance of efforts. If we align our airmen mindset to that, they'll have an easier time aligning the donations. And I haven't gone into detail with the Orange Rope Refinery of why that hasn't become a sustained program. But the only thing I can think of is that their messaging may have not been aligned with some sort of ATC lines of effort that they were trying to push at that time.
I think as far as like the communication, I think it will come with time, and I think we'll have breakthroughs between MAGCOMs and everything. And there's one thing that I just, when I was researching kind of like current events with talent management and the DoD, I don't know how familiar you are with the new chief talent management officer, but Mr. Brent Parmenter was named the DoD's inaugural CTMO. So I think, looking at if these things and the changes are being made at a really, really high level within the DoD, I think that those folks are going to prioritize the communication across service branches and then down through the MAGCOMs. Eventually these things I think that we're talking about as issues or like challenges, I think are going to be non-issues, or at the very least, it's going to be a little bit easier to do. But yeah, Brandon, that was all I had for that. Do you have something else, Brandon?
Yeah, so you talk about the policy, the new DAFI just came out as well, right? Thanks, G, for sending that out. So the disconnect of where we're seeing it is not that the policy isn't being made at the top, because it is, right? It's being developed on the fly as fast and close to relevancy as that you could develop it at. The issue is that middle grounds, wings, things like that, lower parts of the MAGCOM, squadrons, groups that can help supplement that policy and develop that policy are not doing it. They're just waiting in a stagnated state. So what we're trying to address is the fact that, okay, one, we need to show them empathy, hear their pains and gains of that environment, but also recommend that, hey, they just take a shot on developing their own policy within this environment that will fit their ecosystem. And then when policy comes out, how are they adapting that into, instead of just waiting? Because by the time that policy comes out, well, now you're a year or two behind at that level. And so now you're not developing at relevancy anymore. You're playing catch up again. And then you're constantly playing catch up with that. So are they feeling within those levels empowered enough to take that risk and develop within that environment to be able to say, okay, even though the MAGCOM is developing policy and they're meeting the lines of efforts like G is talking about here, we're going to take a shot at this. And I trust that the MAGCOM has my back in that to have that risk and have that mitigation of risk to say, okay, we're going to try and fail at some stuff. We're going to try and win at some stuff. When it comes to sustainability, the same thing happens. Whoever owns it then earmarks it and says, okay, we're going to change this at our speed. Instead of keeping it at a more flexible component and just having an overview control of that environment and having the SMEs continuously development. We have this issue in ATC with CCAF development and lesson plans. Since it has to go back and forth so much, the problem is by the time that we're saying that, hey, this is relevant, it takes too long. And so now we're on the next block of relevancy, trying to catch up to that. So is this creating, and the DAFI does this, right? It creates a flexibility for those wings to be able to say, okay, I want to develop my own policy with this to be, because this is how I want my innovation space to look like. So now you're just supplementing the environment. So yeah, we're tracking on the same page. It's just wherever you are, the pains and risk mitigation changes. So like I sit below a squadron because I work at detachment. But yet when we communicate with the wing and we communicate with the MAGCOM, we try and bring that perspective to it of like, hey, when you change this in the DAFI, this is how we interpret it. This is how we want to change it. So those lines of network and communication have to be stronger for all wings, groups, squadrons to be able to do that. And that's that culture shift. Over.
Yeah, I just want to add in, Brandon, as a policy manager for my career field at the MAGCOM level, like everything you just said just not only the innovation space, but just the policy space. And it goes back to what you said, just the different wings and where they're at and their buy-in. And then not only just buy-in, but what things do they think they can do or control? And then by the time that they do implement or submit a policy change or update, you're right, we're up to the next thing. And then, at the half level where they're at to implement the things that we've may approved or haven't approved, now we're waiting on the rest of the managed comms to codify. And that's, even 2-3 months down the road is already light years from what base level tactical is operating at. And, they're handling the next thing at their level. And really, they just need clear guidance on a yes, no, can I not operate in this manner? And that's a policy communication. That's not even an innovation side communication. But I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm gonna earmark that piece because, in the future, working on that communication, I'm gonna tab you and bring you along with me because something that I want to do that I am doing on my side, at least in the Pacific, in the 2S community, is we do MAJCOM syncs with the bases and teaching them how to do policy and how to get those steps faster now and how it even works. Because I remember, I didn't learn even how to make those steps or changes or try to change it until I was in for 10 years. And that goes back to the other culture stuff and what we're doing at the lowest level. We need to start teaching the airmen, hey, here's how you can implement change at your level, and here's how you do it. So I think it's just another tool we need to add.
Yeah, that was an awesome point, Brandon. Thanks for sharing that. And like basically what the crux of that, I think, is like the talent management is risk management.
Yeah.
Essentially, right? Like, I mean, if we're unable or unwilling or if we can't get around the acceptance of some calculated risk at some point, and this goes with a ton of stuff, but it does go with talent management too. Like, we're never going to be able to make any changes. So I think, like, I'm trying to bring it kind of back to like the liaison's perspective, or just like an advocate's perspective of being able to effectively communicate up your chain why that risk is worth it, right? Why is the juice worth the squeeze? And be able to paint that picture, like, I don't have the best words, but try to paint that picture as best you can to create those lines of communication and to be able to get that to get that acceptable level of risk understood. Like, where are we at, right? And what could we take on? And then kind of see what flows from that too.
Yeah, and that's why I'm excited to, eventually get more in depth on the next training that I went to a couple weeks ago. Because I mean, some of that training directly ties into, creating an innovation system for the production system to understand. And a lot of that is the risk management, like a concept. They don't want to accept the risk because they don't understand the system. So if you can give them a system that they can understand on a production level, in an innovation level, you can communicate that risk mitigation or risk factor more appropriately to what they're used to hearing.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, I know we're coming up on, we got a couple minutes left, but there were a few things that I jotted down as far as where I see that the Air Force has opportunities to change, right? Kind of like I guess, like, to me, this is like a strategic change. There's a couple that I came up with, like aligning future needs, right? We need to be able to look ahead to align future needs. We can look at some mismatches across AFSCs with manning or things like that and get a little bit more agile with that. We need to be the ones that inspire experimentation too, right? And that kind of goes back to the risk management stuff. Like, we need to be the ones that are advocating for change. Oh, like, you know what I mean? The squeaky wheel. Be the squeaky wheel everywhere you go. We need to coordinate and like promote coordinated innovation, like scientific innovation and partnerships and collaboration. Like, and I always look at like what DARPA did, and continues to do. Like, they're kind of like they're the apex of that civilian, like private sector and defense sector collaboration partnership. We need to be able to collect data too. We absolutely need to have the data. We need to get more serious about like the Internet of Things and AI and how that's going to be able to, you know, how we can leverage that stuff so that we can collect the data. I think for too long, we've thrown data to the side and really focused on like metrics that were important at the time or that were perceived as important. And we just kept that kind of train going. And then lastly, like the research community, right? Like AFRL, IMSC, all of these other agencies, AFWorks, Tesseract, all the primes, just continue to kind of leverage them and the experts that they have in their fields and everything. So, and then the last, like, and I wanted to get to Gig Eagle. I wanted to get to the Gig Eagle, but you know, maybe we'll save that for another time.
I like it. I'll open it up to anyone with any closing comments, questions, and then Austin and I do take compliments as well.
Actually, so that's you got to pay the fee, right? So the Eventbrite fee was free. It was $0. It was free 99 for everyone. And compliments are an absolute need. So
Hey, thank you all for this because it was truly good. And the stakeholders that are here today, appreciate it. You guys have really good information, and this is the way that we innovate. We connect people and we communicate. And I'm glad some connections were made today as well. Now that you mentioned Eventbrite, is everyone here aware of the Tesseract Summit coming up? If you are and you don't have an invite or you don't know any details, we can provide you details as well. That's all.
Personally, I'm not. I heard about a summit, but I didn't get any details on it. All I know is I want to go because I need to get the swag.
Okay, cool. I'll see if an invite has been extended to all LNOs. If it hasn't, then I'll see what we can do. Appreciate it, y'all.
And for those innovators out there, don't forget that today is the last day to submit your names for the TMT Pathfinder for the 9i career field that they're trying to push out this next year. So
If anybody's going up for it, best of luck if you get it.
yeah, so
It'd be awesome.
the team, thanks for everything. I appreciate the meeting. I'm looking forward for part 2, just like how John said. So please add me to the next conversation. Happy to be part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for joining us today, and everybody else. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And thank you for, you know, your passion and innovation and where you're at and like inspiring that next generation. So I really appreciate it. And Henna, everyone else at Tesseract, thank you for the opportunity again. So yeah.